In the last episode, God called Gideon from a winepress to become a deliverer. The fleece was wet, then dry. The army was reduced from 32,000 to 300. With trumpets and torches and empty jars, they routed the Midianite camp. The enemy turned on itself. The victory belonged to the Lord. But victory is often followed by complications. The Ephraimites asked Gideon, "Why have you treated us like this? Why did you not call us when you went to fight Midian?" They criticize him sharply. Ephraim is offended. They were called late only to capture the fleeing enemy at the Jordan. They believe they deserved more. Gideon answers them, "What have I accomplished compared to you? Are not the gleanings of Ephraim's grapes better than the full grape harvest of Abiezer? God gave Oreb and Zeb, the Midianite leaders, into your hands. What was I able to do compared to you?" At this, their resentment against him subsides. Gideon's answer is wise. He gives Ephraim the credit. He makes their late arrival sound like the greater achievement. Pride is soothed by praise. Gideon and his 300 men, exhausted but still in pursuit, cross the Jordan. He says to the men of Succoth, "Give my troops some bread. They are worn out, and I am still pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, the kings of Midian." But the officials of Succoth answer, "Do you already have the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna in your possession? Why should we give bread to your troops?" They refuse. The Midianite kings are still alive. Succoth will not risk their anger. Gideon replies, "Just for that, when the Lord has given Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I will tear your flesh with desert thorns and briars." From there he goes up to Peniel and makes the same request of them. They answer as the men of Succoth had. So he says, "When I return in triumph, I will tear down this tower." 2 Israelite cities refuse to help their brothers. They fear Midian more than they trust the God of Israel. Now Zebah and Zalmunna are in Karkor with a force of about 15,000 men. All that is left of the armies of the eastern peoples. 120,000 swordsmen have fallen. The destruction is staggering. Of the vast horde that invaded Israel, only 15,000 remain. Gideon goes up by the route of the nomads east of Nobah and Jogbehah and attacks the army while they feel secure. Zebah and Zalmunna flee, but he pursues them and captures them, routing their entire army. The kings of Midian are taken. The enemy is broken. Gideon, son of Joash, then returns from the battle by the pass of Heres. He captures a young man of Succoth and questions him. The young man writes down for him the names of the 77 officials of Succoth, the elders of the town. Then Gideon comes to the men of Succoth. He says, "Here are Zebah and Zalmunna, about whom you taunted me by saying, 'Do you already have the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna in your possession? Why should we give bread to your exhausted men?'" He takes the elders of the town and teaches the men of Succoth a lesson by punishing them with desert thorns and briars. He also pulls down the tower of Peniel and kills the men of the town. Gideon keeps his word. The cities that refuse to help pay the price. He asks Zebah and Zalmunna, "What kind of men did you kill at Tabor?" They answer, "Men like you, each one with the bearing of a prince." Gideon replies, "Those were my brothers, the sons of my own mother. As surely as the Lord lives, if you had spared their lives, I would not kill you." Turning to Jether, his oldest son, he says, "Kill them." But Jether does not draw his sword, because he is only a boy and is afraid. Zebah and Zalmunna say, "Come, do it yourself. As is the man, so is his strength." So Gideon steps forward and kills them. He takes the ornaments off their camels' necks. The kings of Midian die by Gideon's hand. This is personal. They killed his brothers. The Israelites say to Gideon, "Rule over us, you, your son, and your grandson, because you have saved us from the hand of Midian." They offer him a dynasty, a crown, the beginning of a kingdom. But Gideon tells them, "I will not rule over you, nor will my son rule over you. The Lord will rule over you." Gideon refuses the throne. Only the Lord should rule Israel. This is the right answer. But then he says, "I do have one request, that each of you give me an earring from your share of the plunder." It is the custom of the Ishmaelites to wear gold earrings. They answer, "We will be glad to give them." So they spread out a garment, and each of them throws a ring from his plunder onto it. The weight of the gold rings he asks for comes to 1,700 shekels, not counting the ornaments, the pendants, and the purple garments worn by the kings of Midian, or the chains that are on their camels' necks. Gideon makes the gold into an ephod, which he places in Ophrah, his town. An ephod, a priestly garment. Gideon has no right to make one. He is not a priest. Ophrah is not the tabernacle. All Israel prostitute themselves by worshiping it there, and it becomes a snare to Gideon and his family. This is the turning point of Gideon's story. The man who tore down his father's altar to Baal now becomes the source of a new idolatry. The deliverer becomes the stumbling block. The gold that celebrated God's victory becomes a trap that will ensnare his own family. Gideon's decline shows how quickly a deliverer can become corrupted by the victory God gave him. Thus, Midian is subdued before the Israelites and does not raise its head again. During Gideon's lifetime, the land has peace 40 years. Jerub-Baal, son of Joash, goes back home to live. He has 70 sons of his own, for he has many wives. His concubine, who lives in Shechem, also bears him a son, whom he names Abimelech. 70 sons, many wives, a concubine in Shechem, and a son whose name means, "My father is king." Gideon refused the crown, but he lived like a king, and the son of his concubine carries a royal name. Gideon, son of Joash, dies at a good old age and is buried in the tomb of his father Joash in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. No sooner is Gideon dead than the Israelites again prostitute themselves to the Baals. They set up Baal-berith as their god. The ephod was just the beginning. After Gideon's death, Israel returns fully to idolatry. The Israelites do not remember the Lord their God, who has rescued them from the hands of all their enemies on every side. They also fail to show any loyalty to the family of Jerub-Baal, that is, Gideon, in spite of all the good things he has done for them. They forget God, they forget Gideon. Both are abandoned. Abimelech, son of Jerub-Baal, goes to his mother's brothers in Shechem. He says to them and to all his mother's clan, "Ask all the citizens of Shechem, which is better for you, to have all 70 of Jerub-Baal's sons rule over you, or just one man? Remember, I am your flesh and blood." When the brothers repeat all this to the citizens of Shechem, they are inclined to follow Abimelech, for they say, "He is related to us." They give him 70 shekels of silver from the temple of Baal-berith. Abimelech uses it to hire reckless scoundrels who become his followers. Money from a pagan temple funds the hiring of thugs. He goes to his father's home in Ophrah and on one stone murders his 70 brothers, the sons of Jerub-Baal. 70 brothers, killed on a single stone. The sons of the deliverer slaughtered by their own half-brother. But Jotham, the youngest son of Jerub-Baal, escapes by hiding. One survives. Then all the citizens of Shechem and Beth Millo gather beside the great tree at the pillar in Shechem to crown Abimelech king. The son of a concubine, funded by Baal's temple, with the blood of 70 brothers on his hands, becomes king. When Jotham is told about this, he climbs up on the top of Mount Gerizim. He shouts to them, "Listen to me." In the last episode, God called Gideon from a winepress to become a deliverer. The fleece was wet, then dry. The army was reduced from 32,000 to 300. With trumpets and torches and empty jars, they routed the Midianite camp. The enemy turned on itself. The victory belonged to the Lord. But victory is often followed by complications. The Ephraimites ask Gideon, "Why have you treated us like this? Why did you not call us when you went to fight Midian?" They criticize him sharply. Ephraim is offended. They were called late only to capture the fleeing enemy at the Jordan. They believe they deserved more. Gideon answers them, "What have I accomplished compared to you? Are not the gleanings of Ephraim's grapes better than the full grape harvest of Abiezer? God gave Oreb and Zeb, the Midianite leaders, into your hands. What was I able to do compared to you?" At this, their resentment against him subsides. Gideon's answer is wise. He gives Ephraim the credit. He makes their late arrival sound like the greater achievement. Pride is soothed by praise. Gideon and his 300 men, exhausted but still in pursuit, cross the Jordan. He says to the men of Sukkoth, "Give my troops some bread. They are worn out, and I am still pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, the kings of Midian." But the officials of Sukkoth answer, "Do you already have the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna?" So all the men cut branches and follow Abimelech. They pile them against the stronghold and set it on fire with the people still inside. So all the people in the tower of Shechem, about 1,000 men and women, also die. Fire consumes Shechem. Jotham's curse is fulfilled. The thorn bush has burned the cedars. Next, Abimelech goes to Thebez and besieges it and captures it. Inside the city, however, is a strong tower, to which all the men and women, all the people of the city, have fled. They have locked themselves in and climbed up on the tower roof. Abimelech goes to the tower and attacks it. But as he approaches the entrance to the tower to set it on fire, a woman drops an upper millstone on his head and cracks his skull. A millstone, dropped by a woman. The man who murdered 70 brothers is brought down by a grinding stone. Hurriedly he calls to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and kill me, so that they cannot say, 'A woman killed him.'" So his servant runs him through, and he dies. Abimelech dies by the sword, but the blow that felled him came from a woman's hand. The king who was never meant to be is struck down in the midst of his destruction. When the Israelites see that Abimelech is dead, they go home. Thus God repays the wickedness that Abimelech has done to his father by murdering his 70 brothers. God also makes the people of Shechem pay for all their wickedness. The curse of Jotham son of Jerub-Baal comes on them. Fire from Abimelech consumed Shechem. Fire from Shechem, in the form of a millstone, consumed Abimelech. The man who refused to be king raised a son who killed for a crown. The ephod that seemed harmless became a snare. The victory over Midian gave way to civil war. Gideon's story reveals a troubling pattern. Israel's deliverers do not restore the nation. They bring temporary relief, but the rot has already set in. Gideon began well, but he ended by creating the very idolatry he was called to destroy. His legacy was not faithfulness, but fratricide. Thank you for listening to this episode about the decline of Gideon and the tragedy of Abimelech. What began in triumph ended in curse. In the next episode, Israel again cries out under oppression. God raises up Jephthah, a man rejected by his own family, to deliver them. But his rash vow will cost him more than he imagined, and tribal jealousy will erupt into civil war at the fords of the Jordan.